Namaste. Welcome to our 36th talk on the Bhagavad Gita. We're in the 6th chapter. We've already considered the first half of the verse, so let's start with the second half. He who just desires to know about yoga, now this is really pretty amazing, goes beyond the Vedas. Well, now, the Vedas are considered the absolute supreme scriptures of the world. They are called Shruti. Shruti means that which has been heard. And by that, it means that the Vedic seers, we call rishis, they heard the Vedas vibrating in the ether, because the Vedas actually are the fundamental sound energy entities make up impelling forces of the creation. Literally, they are the sound form of what later became this whole complex, which we call creation. God spoke, and it was. So they're called Shabda Brahman, the sound God, because God, His will, His consciousness are united. So the very recitation of the God of the Vedas brings us into that kind of into that dimension, that supernormal dimension. It's important to know this because they're not, they're just hymns in a religion that was polytheistic and da. No. Even the gods are symbols of forces within the universe, though they exist too. That's the wonderful thing about Hinduism. You get everything. Yes, it's a symbol, but it's also a reality. Or it's a reality, but it also symbolizes something, and so it's a message. It's Purna Dharma, completely full Dharma. Dharma is, it's interesting, you see, it doesn't say we don't just say religion or idea. Dharma is also action. It implies action. And real religion is lived by its members, not just believed in by it. So, just wanting to know about the way to find God, you go beyond the Vedas, because the Vedas may be the word of God, and they are, in a sense, being in the mind of God. They're not the essence of God, which is the consciousness of God. Shabda Brahman is sound Brahman, but there also is Chaitanya Brahman, the consciousness that is God. So if you desire, of course, this means a real desire, like, I might like to know about it. I don't think I've mentioned it in these talks. I remember one time, three others went with me. We went overland to India, not because it seemed a nice thing to do, though a lot of hippies were doing it. In fact, people were going from London in double-decker buses, loads of people. I had somehow come into some money, but not enough for four people to go on. And these three people were really sincere and dedicated yogis. In fact, we'd actually gotten a house together. Satsang, company of other seekers of truth, is very important. So one other of them worked the same place I did. The others had different places of work. But we rented this house and we meditated together and we studied together. And we talked together about these things. And so I thought, of course, I wanted to get back to Mother Anandamayi's presence. And I thought, Ma is everyone's mother and loves everyone's mother. And she often said, Ma is for everyone's salvation, moksha, liberation. So I thought, will Ma accept me if I just, in a sense, take the money and run? That is, if I just, okay, I buy a ticket and then the rest of the money I just take with me, I go to India. And I had the conviction she would not. This would not be right. So I decided we'll all forego. And there was some way we managed it. And it was a long thing to see. Ma could do anything. It was amazing. This kind of program came out by which we could do it. We went overland. We went in a Volkswagen bus. And then after that, it was in, but you see, it cost about $1,200 to $1,300 to go to India, round trip. Ma blessed us to come back and come back many times. And when we got back to America, the price for a round trip ticket came down by a special kind of deal or program to $500. So we went several times because we could afford it. You see, uh, how these great ones will look after you if you really, really mean what you're doing. So what an incredible idea. So you go into a whole way of life that we can just hardly imagine, and into a mode of reality. All right, sorry. By persevering effort and mastery, it's not enough to try, you've got to succeed. And it's all set up, and it has nothing to do with whether God likes you, God is pleased with you or displeased with you, whether your heart is pure, and blah, blah, blah. It's pure mechanics, but it's pure mechanics that will only be applied by the right kind of consciousness, of course, and the right kind of will. By persevering effort and mastery, the totally purified yogi, and this is really important, purification has to be there. From the simplest modes of purification to the highest. Perfected through many births. You didn't just begin. Every one of us, I who am talking to you and you who are listening, this is not the first time. This is not the beginning for any of you either. There have been many births. And now we're here together. Perfected through many births, he reaches the supreme goal. The yogi is superior to ascetics. I mean, my friend Dutta Bal told me about a European yogini who lived in his ashram who ate nothing but neem leaves, the leaves of the neem tree. It's mentioned somewhere in some text where it says, well, not just him who lives only on neem leaves. Neem leaves and water. She did it. There are people who do all kinds of yoga kriyas, very difficult processes for purification. I knew a little old lady who she was kind of bent over. She was maybe about 4.5 feet tall. She lived in Delhi, and she walked all the way to Western India to the shrine of Vaishnavi Devi on foot, all the way there and back once a year. I mean, you understand, she wasn't in good health or any. In fact, she had terrible asthma, but she did it. So there are yogis that do amazing things, whether it's with diet Whether it's what they decide, I'm not going to sleep for a month or meditate for a month and so on. I don't recommend it, but some people do it. And all kinds of things that take, a lot of health, a lot of strength, and a tremendous amount of will because it is not the normal way the human being functions. So it isn't comfortable. But the yogi is superior to all that. People are impressed, though, by people who do these things that other people cannot do, which is good for their ego because they can say, well, I could never do that. But what the yogi does, everybody can do. See, we are special and we're not at all special. That's the way it works. The yogi is superior to ascetics and considered superior to jnanis, those who have great wisdom. And they don't just mean philosophical facts that they could talk about. It means they have real insight. They've really seen things. They've really understood. And superior to those engaged in Vedic rituals. Because there are people who do these things, very elaborate things, and they're very divine and sacred things. They're not superstitious and they're not useless. They are themselves very necessary for people at a certain stage. And again, we shouldn't think, well, if it's a stage lesser, it's not as good. For them, it's as good as the highest yogi because it's right up to their capacity. They're doing their utmost. See? As Mirabai said, I've sold everything in the marketplace of this world, and I bought my Kanaya, Krishna. Some people laugh at me. They say it was too much. Others laugh at me and say it was too little. But all I know is it was everything I had. There we go. Mira was right. She was real yogini. All right. Therefore, be a yogi. We'll find this statement more than once. And this is the essence of the Gita. There are things that, oh, the Gita in a verse, etc. You don't need a whole verse. It's just a little bit of a verse. Therefore, be a yogi. Of all the yogis, he who has merged his inner self in me. Made the absolute his life, not just intellectually, but by sadhana has become one with that. Well, again, we're told in the Upanishad, yes, I'm back at this again, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, in the beginning there was only the Purusha who first said, Soham asmi, I am Soham. And the Soham yogi unites his consciousness with the flow of the breath and with the Soham bhava, and therefore, ultimately, doesn't happen after just a few days, but ultimately will merge consciously with Brahman. And then the journey will be over. And everyone can do it. It is easy and simple. You could teach an intelligent 3-year-old child how to do Soham sadhana. I have taught children to meditate. I taught a 6-year-old to meditate. In fact, they were brother and sister. There were one boy was 6, the other boy was 9, and his sister was 10 or 11. And I taught them to meditate, and we sat there and they meditated like rocks for about an hour. That meant they had meditated in many lives before. And their parents were yogis, you see, so they had been born in a family of yogis. All right. Of all the yogis, he who has merged his inner self in me and honors me, in other words, is very conscious and we should be at home with God, but we should always be on God and realize this is the supreme. There's nothing else worth knowing. There's no state of being worth having but that divine thing. Full of faith. You get faith from experience, and you get experience from practice, from sadhana. I consider him the most devoted to me, not the people who sit and cry and they sing songs about Krishna and Rama, oh, Divine Mother, and everybody is just carried away on the waves of their devotion. That's theater. That's not even religion. That truly is the fact. All right, then. Now, chapter 7, the yoga of wisdom and realization. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. I just love those words. The holy Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the personal God, Ishwara. He said, he spoke. There are people like to say, I actually went to lectures by so and so, will be some big authority. I remember one of my psychology teachers had been a student of the trailblazing psychiatrist Rogers at the University of Chicago. It was really impressive to think about. But there's somebody even bigger than that. And we've got his words right here. With mind absorbed in me, practicing yoga. See, if he said with mind absorbed in me, you could think, well, it's an orientation of thought I should have. It's a feeling I should have. No, yoga is it. Without yoga, there isn't anything. Religion and so on, it can fade away from a person's life. I've known people who went to church several times in the week and on, and then something happened after 30 years, and that was it. You never saw them anymore. Okay, with mind absorbed in me, practicing yoga, taking refuge in me, doing all that. Since you, O Arjuna, you've done that, hear how without doubt you shall know me completely. You can encompass infinity in your consciousness. It should be impossible. And it is, except if you're a yogi. It's like there were medical books that some disciples of Yogiraj Shamachara Lahiri had read about the human body and what happens and the life processes and the death processes. And one time they saw Yogi Raj in samadhi, and they could tell he wasn't breathing. Well, has he died? They touched him, he was warm, but he had no heartbeat, he didn't breathe, there wasn't a single life process that they could perceive. And they thought, oh no, he's dead. We've just begun learning from him, and he's dead. And then one of them said, don't you remember at school they said, these are the signs of death? Oh, what a wonderful land of India. This is medical school where people are supposed to be rationalistic. He said, don't you remember in our text it said, these are the symptoms of death, but they do not apply in many cases to adept yogis. Isn't that great? Oh, that's why when I saw it, my soul was relieved. I just walked to the door and saw India and knew I've got it. I've got there. The there which leads you to all. there. So, and here I see we have a few seconds left. Well, let's get the verse completed. With mind absorbed in me, practicing yoga, taking refuge in me, understanding you don't have any other hope besides this. It's the truth. You have no other hope besides sadhana. A lot of things you have to do to support the sadhana. But you understand this is it and you cling to it. St. Paul was in a shipwreck. He caught hold of a large board, or what they call a spar, and he held on to it. It was in the dead of night, couldn't see anything. And he held on to it. And when the day came, he could see there was a shore, and so he could kick his feet, and holding on to that, which kept him afloat, because he didn't know how to swim, he got to shore and he lived. So clinging to that, not letting go because it is a matter of life and death. Taking refuge in God, realizing you've got no hope outside of God. Hear how without doubt you shall know me completely, totally. Well, God's infinite. How will you know him? You become infinite. It's hard to believe we could be, but that's the beauty of yoga. You just keep on, and it turns out to be real. I've known of many yogis that sometimes, and they're meditating, and all of a sudden they stop and they think, "Oh, this stuff is real. The things I heard about is happening." And of course, they're surprised because it sounds, what do we say, too good to be true. But it isn't. It is the truth. We can know the absolute absolutely. So, well, now we've got the next talk all cut out for us. So, thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Namaste. Till we meet again.